Hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. We'll just wait another moment, make sure everybody who wants to be here has a moment to get settled in. If you want, while we wait, go ahead and just introduce yourself in the chat, and we'll get started in just a couple minutes. I have a sort of like inhaling water problem. I don't know if anybody ever does that. I'll like take a drink of water and breathe at the same time. It's not very useful skill. Alrighty. I want to make sure we have plenty of time today for questions and answers and things of that nature. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Everybody can hear me okay? Thumbs up? Good? All right. Fantastic. All right. Too many things. All right. So welcome to How to Set and Get Your Goals. My name is Asia Marsh. I live in Santa Fe. And I just want to like congratulate you guys for being here today. So, you know, you're here, you're showing up. So whether you're here out of curiosity or support or just looking to level up your goal life, you are here showing up for yourself, and give yourself a little hug, a little pat on the back, a little high five to everybody else in the Zoom today. So thanks so much for being here. You know, you're being ready to be ready. So that's great. So, you know, we are in weird times right now, obviously. And, you know, the goal and plan making space might feel a little bit murky, right? So, but I also think that it's like a really great time for introspection, reflection, kind of course shifting, and just getting realigned with our values. So that's the space that I'm coming from today. But I also got some really great questions from some of you through Eventbrite. I'm going to work to integrate addressing those questions through the presentation, but certainly if you have any other questions that didn't get addressed or things spark to mind as we go through, feel free to drop those in the chat and we will address them towards the end. And it's just me today, no moderator or anything, so so just like be patient with me. Let me know if there's any technical difficulties. And so I just want to, as we get ready to jump in, let's just take one deep breath together. We're grounded in the space together. Thanks so much, everyone. And we're going to dive on in. So I'm going to get my screen share on here. All right. There we go. Maybe. right, so. All right, so how to set and get your goals, or how to stop creating weak goals and make things happen. That's what we're all about today. So this is me. I'm Asia. I love goals. I'm a momentum coach. I work with ambitious folks like you to gain financial and physical empowerment. But what I really do is help people connect the dots of where they are and where they want to be. So basically it comes down to goals, which is why this is a subject I'm really passionate about and why I'm really glad to be here today with you guys. So basically all my life I've been getting after it. My academic and achievement-oriented hyper-focus growing up carried over into my adult life until I eventually had to admit that perfectionist and overachieving tendencies were not working for me. I was stressed out all the time. It just wasn't a good vibe for myself. So I just started looking at goals a little bit differently, less about arbitrary or societal goals, and instead getting really clear about the objectives that I had for myself and how I wanted to live and how I wanted to show up in the world. Rest assured, I'm still super working on it, but that's where I'm coming from, and those are some of the, I hope to share some of the things that I've learned along the way in my own journey. The people who get things done, who lead, who grow, and who make an impact, those people have goals. So, you're here today because maybe you want to level up the potency and possibility of your goals, or maybe you want to blow up your old approach to getting goals, but whatever you're here for, let's go, let's get it done. So what we're going to talk about today are some of the stages of powerful goal setting and obviously how to achieve those goals. So get in touch with your feelings. When we set goals, we're really going for a feeling. We're going for a feeling more than we're going for an achievement, or at least, again, this is where I'm coming from. So what's the vision, the lifestyle, the dream you're trying to achieve? Do really own that. A lot of us have goals that are attached to what other people expect of us and are less about what we want for ourselves. So you need to own whatever your goal is. Thinking about how the idea of achieving that vision or dream or lifestyle, how does that make you feel? What does getting to that point mean to you? Accomplishments and success, they're a start, but they're not enough. So you have to get real with your feelings. So this may be for some of us a little bit uncomfortable to get in touch with our feelings in that way, but it's really important for us, in order to set goals that continue to motivate us and inspire us to action, we have to come from a place of feeling and excitement. We need to distill it down. We need to dial it in. We need to identify the milestones and the actions that we need to take along the way to achieve that bigger vision, that bigger goal. Are those milestones and actions realistic or achievable? Are they challenging but inspiring? They have to get you fired up. So they might seem a little bit of a stretch, but they might be really exciting. And we're going to go through all of this stuff more, but ultimately, they need to get you fired up. So planning. What has to change? So when we set a goal, oftentimes it disrupts things that are going on in our lives because we're not trying to stick with the status quo. We're trying to level up, or we're trying to maybe go a different direction. So we have to identify what has to change and what maybe we have to let go of, and what we need to embrace. So we might have to come from a place of embracing what might be considered failure more, or we might have to embrace a different pace of lifestyle, or a little bit of discomfort that we're not used to. We also need to identify our obstacles. So what might get in how might we get in our own way? What happens when life or circumstances get in the way, which they always do. So we have to plan for those things as opposed to trying to just react to them in the moment. So we have to get started. Action and implementation. What little things can you do to get started and keep going? I know that this is I think, one of the toughest points for all of us in working towards our goals, because setting goals is exciting. Like, it's fun to think about, like, oh, it would be great if I did this or got this or achieved XYZ things. Getting started is sometimes easy, and because we're coming from that like really excited place, but like getting started in a way that is sustainable, and figuring out how to implement things is a little bit more challenging. So we're going to talk about how to be really successful in the implementation of our plan, our path to getting those goals. Then you need to activate your squad. So this is about accountability and who you respect and trust with your goals and your desires and your dreams. Like, who's got your back? That is a really important part of setting a path to success, is figuring out who you can tap into for that support. And again, you know, all of this we're going to continue to talk about even more. So importantly is celebrating. We do not do this nearly enough. I think especially women, we don't do this enough either, really celebrating our goals and our achievements. You know, it feels like one thing in the achievement itself feels like one thing in a long line of a million things that we have going on. So taking a pause to celebrate, to give ourselves, you know, a pat on the back or do something even bigger to celebrate is, I think, super important, and is a really important part of how we stay motivated. Even thinking about how you will celebrate at the end of achieving a goal can be really motivating as well. And then we need to reflect. So reflecting on what went well, what didn't go so well. Those are all things that we need to do in order to keep this cycle, this goal setting and goal achievement cycle, in a good place, so that when we are ready to go to the next thing, we've learned something and we've already gotten in touch with what we learned through our last course. All right, so many papers. So this next slide, if this is all that you were here for, I think it would be really useful. So why set goals at all? Ultimately, we're setting goals because we have a vision for ourselves. One of the things I think is really fun to ask is, what is the one thing I can't stop doing or thinking about? So in thinking about how to set a goal or what would make an effective goal, what is that thing that just keeps bugging me or just gets me really excited every time I think about it? You know, we have we're looking for inspiration. We're looking for a certain kind of lifestyle. Goals should be a way for us to connect with that inspiration and that intention, and for us to really connect to our core values. And they also should be a way for us to explore and celebrate our curiosity. So again, when we are looking at goals, looking at creating goals that are a celebration of what we care about and what our values are and what we really want for our lives, as opposed to what others might want for us, that can become a really fun place to explore and just see what happens and what's out there. So when we are feeling conflict or stuck, or feeling a lack of momentum, that often comes when we're disconnected from that space or we're overly ambitious. And we will talk more about that. All right, so know your true intentions. So you need, when you are getting started with just even identifying your goal, you need to ask how you want to feel and what's the lifestyle you want to achieve. One question I really like is, what do you want to create? I think I'm a super achievement oriented person, so I often think about what I want to achieve or what I want to accomplish.
Hey, I
think it's a much more beautiful question to ask, what do you want to create? You know, it's really easy to set an endpoint without connecting to it. So let's look at goals a little bit differently. So goals as a means of connecting deeply with our true values, as opposed to a means to an end. That goals should be a purpose to support your vision for yourself. So after you've gone through that sort of feeling process, that feeling space, ask why. I always like to think about this as like, you know, the 5-year-old who keeps asking why, repeating over and over and over, why, until they get to something really profound. Like, I'm sure this has happened to many of you, where it just starts to get really philosophical, and then it really requires you to think about it. So that is the point that you want to get to with yourself, asking yourself why you want to feel a certain way, why you want to create a certain thing, why you want to achieve XYZ thing. That is your why. That is where you create your goals from. So for kind of going through identifying these intentions and how you're going to formulate your goals, first imagine your outcome. Imagine the best possible outcome and how that outcome would make you feel. And if you have something in mind right now, I want you to kind of tap into that, what the best possible outcome could be and how that would make you feel. Ultimately, you want your goals to be something you want to accomplish for real, something that is meaningful to you, something that you really want to come to fruition. Your goals should be exciting and challenging and inspiring, and they should be motivating in and of themselves. So there's lots of types of goals that you can have. I like to think about it as building a portfolio of goals. We tend to stack our goals in one area of life that we feel either the most or least excited by, depending on where energy is coming from. We need to find some balance with our goals. So you don't have to have a goal in every one of these areas. I think that might be overwhelming, but it depends on what's going on there. You don't have to hit them hard all at the same time. So when you're going, working towards goals, you don't have to, be full on every single one of these. It's really natural that we will have, energy fluctuations for different things at different times, depending on what else is going on around us. And I want to really, emphasize that acknowledging what we want can be scary. Like, I don't know if anybody else feels that way. Definitely put something in the chat about that, because acknowledging what we want can be scary. We get imposter syndrome. We have struggles with worthiness, asking ourselves, who am I to want XYZ? Admitting to ourselves that our true desire, like admitting to ourselves what our true desires are without factoring in the influence or approval of others, can be really painful, especially if we've fallen short in the past. So in order to really be honest with ourselves and what it is that we want to achieve, we have to work on building our self-trust. We have to take it just a little thing at a time in order to get ourselves comfortable with the idea that we are capable of achieving what we want and of having it. So next step, goals, milestones, and to-dos. We need to be purposeful and intentional. So this just aligns back to all of that from the last slide about being really values-driven and heart-centered, creating goals that are really meaningful to you, not just or at all what others expect of you. And I want to be really clear here that it's okay to dream big and start small. We can have really super huge dreams for ourselves and feel like overwhelmed just by those being there. So it's okay to have this big vision and start from a small place that will, step by step will get us there. One of the things that I think is really important is that goals are not to-dos. To-dos are not motivating. To-dos are a means to achieve goals, but they're not goals themselves. So I like checking things off a list as much as the next person, maybe even more. I really love lists, but to-dos become like little frenemies. Like you have to destroy them, kind of like I'm coming to get you, and then like cross. So that's kind of how I have my like daily to-do list is a little bit like that. But our goals, we need to embrace them. We need to be excited by the journey. We need to be energized by the goals that we have for ourselves. We do not want our goals to oppress us. So examples of goals that I often hear, or kind of common goals, might be something like, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. My goal is to go to the gym 3 times a week, or work out 3 times a week. That's not a goal. Like, maybe it feels like a goal because you go to the gym 0 times a week right now, but it's not a goal in and of itself. What happens when you go to the gym 3 times in 1 week? Have you met your goal? Is it done? Now you can celebrate? Or how many weeks in a row do you have to go to the gym 3 times per week? Like, it doesn't have like an achievement piece of it. It's not actually a goal. The goal might be to land your first pull-up, or to feel fit and healthy continually. Another to-do type goal would be like, I want to learn Spanish. Why do I want to learn Spanish? Maybe I want to communicate effectively with my extended family or with my neighbors. That is my true goal. That's the goal that means something to me. And if I come to Duolingo or Rosetta Stone or whatever with that feeling of like, I'm doing this because I want to be able to communicate better with my family, then that's more motivating to me than just learning Spanish. Learning Spanish feels like somebody just put that on me and now I have to do it or not. Because who else cares if I learn Spanish except for me? Another one might be, I want to save enough money for a down payment for a house, right? But the real goal is to own a house that I love, a house that I will be turned into a home for me and my family. That's the heartfelt goal. Saving enough money is a task. So along those lines, you need to be specific. So as you are making your goals, be as specific as possible and as is logical as you work through what you want your goal to be. So some of those specificities might in and of themselves turn into actions and milestones and things like that, but be specific around what your goal is. Be realistic. So I'm curious to hear from you if this feels controversial. When I wrote down be realistic, I thought, I think this might be controversial. So drop a little line. Let me know if you think that's controversial. The reason I think that it could be controversial is because we can be our own like worst self-editors about like, oh, well, I could never do that, or I can't, that seems impossible. Or someone else might have that feeling of us, or we might assume that they do. So there's that feeling of, is it even possible? The other way to think about being realistic is think about what you can commit to versus what you can achieve. What we can achieve is potentially limitless. But what we can commit to, we know what we can commit to today. We maybe have an idea of what we can commit to this week. Maybe we have an idea of what we can commit to this month or even this year. Right now, maybe all of those things are out of the window, given everything that's going on in the world. But for the rest of the day, you probably have an idea of what you can commit to. So as you think through setting up your goals, consider that realistic part as what you can commit to right now. And what you can commit to now may be different than what it looks like a week or a month from now. Words matter a lot. So the words that you choose are really important. Focus on what you will do and how you will do it. So a lot of times there are words that are like, I want to be like healthier. I want to be more financially secure. I want to have enough money. Things like that. What do those things mean? They don't have any definition, and they don't give you a chance to define and be specific. So avoid words that are too vague like that. And I have the rainbow spinning wheel right now. There we go. Okay. Avoid also negative language like no, don't, want, and other lack invoking words. So, a goal, some goals I hear are things like, I don't want to do XYZ activity. I won't interact with these kinds of people. Think about instead reframing that. So you say, I will do this. I will engage with these kinds of people or activities. We don't want to introduce this like negative lack language into something that's supposed to be energizing and motivating us, because our brain gets really stuck on the negative. You can also use present tense for extra potencies. This might feel a little bit awkward, but when you're writing down your goals, you can write things down as if you are achieving them at the moment. So one I had last year, I ran the Los Angeles Marathon last year. And so I wrote down, it is, whatever the date was, April something, and I am crossing the finish line at the Los Angeles Marathon in a time of 3:45. That was my goal. So it helped me envision that moment. It helped me see that. It helped me tap into what it would feel like to achieve that. So consider, what it would be like, whatever your goals are, what it would feel like to use that present tense. Oops. Okay. And then watch your metrics. So oftentimes we have metrics-based goals. Okay, Google presentations. Oftentimes we have these, metric-based goals are often overly vanity-based. So when I first started my business, I had these things like, oh, I want to, have X many followers by the end of the month on Instagram or whatever, things like that. And they didn't mean anything. Like maybe I would hit it, maybe I wouldn't, and I didn't care either way. Like that's, it's not very useful because they weren't really aligned with my values. I didn't really care how many followers I had. It just felt like something I could tick off a box. Losing X amount of pounds, for example, is a metric that could be important health-wise, but also if you don't lose that weight, but you're healthier overall, do the pounds matter? So are the ones you're using, the metrics you're using aligned with your values? When the metrics don't align, they just tend to evoke less feelings, and they're not really aligned with us. Break your big goal down into mini goals and milestones. So this is, we're going to talk more about how to set up these mini goals and milestones, and how to avoid that overwhelm that we often have from really big goals. This quote is something that I like, kind of leading from that is, it's good to have an end to journey toward, but it is the journey that matters in the end. Okay, so now we've got our goals set. They mean something. They're specific, they're realistic, they're worded nicely, we're using the present tense, we're doing all the good things. So on paper, we are on top. But we've got to start somewhere. Where do we start? We've got to start. When do we start? How do we start? What do we do? So we're going to implement. So for implementing your goals, we need to generate momentum and gain traction. So this is a tricky area because let's be real. When we set a goal, we want it ASAP, like absolutely ASAP. We are so impatient for big results because we are hopefully really fired up about our goal and we just want to get it now. So you've got to take that energy and define your action steps. So these are your milestones and mini goals. You're going to break those milestones and mini goals into action steps. So let's see. So you might have, let's just use the house example. So you want to save, you need to save $100,000, or that's your goal. You want to save $100,000 to put down the down payment on a house. But right now you've got, $5,000 in the bank account. So you've got a ways to go, but you can set tiered goals so that you have it's not just the one goal of getting to $100,000. Maybe you have, okay, well, my first goal is to get to $10,000 and my next goal is to get to 25, and so on and so on. so that you have things that you can continue to get excited by and focused on. Instead of that really big one, you're breaking this down into smaller chunks. So those are some of your milestones, your mini goals or tiers, depending on what your goal looks like. You also might have a plan A or plan B. So the important thing is that, you know, our goals, like our path to getting where we want to go, is rarely linear. So we have to build in some flexibility to our approach. So when we have tiered goals, another good example of a tiered goal is maybe like a sales goal, which you might have in your business. So it helps avoid disappointment, and it builds in flexibility. So if we have, you know, the first tier we want to hit for sales is $10,000. If we hit that this month, you know, or before the end of the year, whatever, then the next level we want to hit is $20,000. And so you have these goals so that you've already kind of got the built-in next level, but maybe the main goal is not get to $50,000 in sales. And instead you're having these like little leapfrogs that you can do. And then really what we're, you know, needing to get in touch with your obstacles and build in flexibility into your plan. So we will talk more about that in the next, in a second. But one of the things that we often don't do enough is to know your rules. What are the guidelines that work well for you? So this can look lots of ways. I like to sort of express it as like doing what you can each day or each week or whatever it is. So, but you have to define what you consider progress. So your rules about, okay, well, you know, maybe so one example I had is for me, again, it's another running example. I give so many of these, so apologies for the non-runners out there. But there's times where I'm not feeling it. I don't want to do it. It's something that I want to do in the sort of big sense, but it's not something I want to do today. And so I have this deal with myself of this doing anything at all. So I live at the bottom of a hill, so I might just say, run up to the top of the hill and back down. It's not very far. It's something I can accomplish in a few minutes, and it makes me feel like I've done something, even though maybe it's not the big thing I wanted to do. It's more than sitting on my butt, which is the alternative. So that is something that I've defined as okay for me. But you have to determine what guidelines and boundaries work well for you. And it comes back down to what you can commit to. And, you know, with all of this being said, sometimes you do have to take a leap. If you've been treading water in your comfort zone for a long time, you have to find ways to get out of that. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to achieve what you're trying to get, where you're trying to go. So consider creating a goal or a milestone or a series of action steps that will challenge you to take a risk. I am an introvert. I don't do well in sort of situations where there's a bunch of people I don't know and I'm expected to just go chat with them, like mixers and things like that. They're the worst. But I went to a conference, a sort of personal growth conference last year, and one of the goals I had for myself was to make 3 meaningful connections, meaningful and sincere connections over the course of the weekend. And I had to just kind of tell myself, I was like, you can't make a meaningful connection if you don't go talk to anybody. So I had to bust out of that a little bit. It helps to sort of like fly under the wing of someone who is more extroverted in those situations and just try and like tap into their conversation. But I pushed myself and it wound up being really great. And I met so many wonderful people. So it's okay. Whoops. Okay, well. Google Slides, thank you. So it's okay to be nerve-sighted. This is a fun word. You're nervous, you're excited. When you are getting started on the path of your big goals, that's a good place to be. It's good to be nervous. It means you care. You could be excited. That means you care as well. You know, you've got these conflicting feelings and it's an okay place to start. So be nerve-sighted. So when you are looking to get started, I already hinted at this is what you have to do. You have to Literally do anything. Literally do anything. That's the real secret for getting started. Oh goodness, skipping ahead, too many slides. Okay, so we can get really precious about our goals or think we need certain things in order to get started. We can construct a whole game out of getting started. Oh, I've got to get the planner and I've got to fill out my whole planner. I got to get my desk organized. This week's not good. I'll start next week. I can't do this thing. I can't get started if it doesn't get done perfectly. No, 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 no. We are just delaying our own happiness, y'all. Like, is that what you're trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve delaying your own happiness? I'm totally guilty of this. I'm sure some of you are guilty of this too. Some of these tools and setup processes might be genuinely helpful. They might help us pick up some momentum and some motivation, but more often than not, they contribute to our procrastination. So I just have to ask us, like, why do we hold ourselves back from the things that we want? Why do we do that to ourselves? Doing anything at all frees us from having to do everything at once. It is the best place to start if you're having trouble or you're feeling anxious or you struggle with gaining momentum. So picking that one thing you can commit to regularly, preferably every day, but whatever is regular, a regular recurring thing, keep repeating it until it feels comfortable and familiar. And then you can add a little bit more difficulty or move on to the next step. When it is obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. So this is where we get into our oh shit moments. Facing your obstacles and dealing with setbacks is a huge part of thinking about how we set our goals and how we can set ourselves up for success for getting those goals. A goal feels like a promise that we make to ourselves, so we feel bad when we don't meet it, even if the goal doesn't work for us anymore. And like I said before, the path to getting our goals is rarely linear. We have to build in flexibility. So we need to identify the possible obstacles and how you will overcome them ahead of time. So we know there's certain things that always come up, whether that's our family or work situation or certain, I like doing lots of different things and I'm a very curious person. So sometimes I get distracted by activities. And so, it's really important for me to know, I know that about myself. So that's useful. I can think about what obstacles I might encounter or how I might get in my own way. And when I think about that ahead of time, I can make a plan. So this is where that making a plan comes into play, because we need to have a sense of what we will do to overcome those obstacles. Ultimately, also, you need to be kind to yourself because life does happen. Lots of things, we could have the best plan, we could have made all of our, laid out all the possible obstacles, what we would do to overcome them, and then something that we never could have anticipated comes into play, and we have to shift or pause, and that's okay. Just be kind to yourself and don't say like, oh, well, I didn't achieve this thing. It's like, well, maybe you didn't achieve that because coronavirus or whatever, So if we don't build in this flexibility, we can set ourselves up for disappointment when there's only one way to win or to achieve success. So it's important to remember that you can start over and you can start where you left off. Having to start over does not make you a failure, okay? Does not make you a failure. You can pick it back up where you left off, or maybe you just have to start back at the beginning, and that is okay. Also okay is to change your goal. I know it seems crazy. You set this goal and you've been working towards it, and then you change it, but change is good. If a goal no longer serves you, it's okay to change it or just get rid of it. Life changes, your objectives change, things change in your life, and it's okay to just change your objective there, okay? There's some questions that you can ask yourself if you're feeling stuck, either getting started or you're in the middle of your goal path. So you can ask, am I overcommitted? Do I have too many things going on and doing this as well is stressing me out or makes me feel resentful of the goal? Or am I trying to do too many big things at once and I need to reprioritize? How does this goal still excite me? And this is where you can find out if it's a goal that you want to stick with. If it no longer excites you, you probably need to change it, tweak it, or maybe get rid of it. Have I defined the finish line? So I'm super guilty of this, of pushing the finish line ever further, of saying like, oh, well, yeah, I guess I got to the place that I wanted to, but it's not really the real place I wanted to go. So you can have multiple goals that are stacked on top of each other, but make sure that when you've defined the finish line for goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. I'm curious how talking about like altering goal if it doesn't fit. Have any of you stuck with a goal even when it no longer fit you? I've definitely, stuck with goals that that didn't fit me anymore, just because it felt like, well, now I'm dedicated to this, so I just got to see it through. Sometimes, it's like, when you've read a book or you're reading a book and you don't like it and you just feel like you have to finish it because you started. You don't have to finish it. Live your life with joy. You don't have to finish something that you don't like or doesn't serve you anymore. Okay. All right, so maintaining focus. This is a really simple one. So when we are in a place where it's like you're not feeling motivated anymore or you're feeling stuck, and you've got this goal, maybe achieving the goal is far out and it's going to take a while to get there. The one thing I want you to zero in on is considering future you. I do this all the time. I find it really useful when I personally don't feel like doing something right now or working towards something. I think about that self who's like, next week, a month from now, a year from now, it's like, why didn't I just do the thing when I had the time or when I had the opportunity or when I could have been working on it and I decided to do nothing instead. So sometimes considering myself in the future almost as a different person, because I think, at least for me, I don't like disappointing other people. So if I think about that other person, that's still me, that helps me refocus and maybe shift my approach, but it helps me focus on that future me. And I find that a really useful way to maintain focus or to get refocused. But with that, who's got your back? So again, this is all about accountability. So you need to identify what kind of support you need and then ask for it. And that's the imperative thing. You need to ask for it. You need to identify who is on your team and share your goals with people who will support you and hold you accountable. And these may not be the same people. You may have people who support you and you may have people who keep you accountable, and they may not be the same people, and that's okay. It takes all kinds of people. We need people who support us, who like are cheerleaders. They bring the tough love, people who we can do things with. We need all of those people. And you need to also be on your own team. So there's lots of ways you can do this. Some people really like doing vision boards. If you like doing that, but you can post your goals somewhere where you will see them and be motivated by them. I often find I have to move where they are because they start to become invisible. That can be really useful. As well as like doing pop-up reminders or encouragement in your calendar or planners. Experiment with new ways to self-motivate. Just try different things and see if they work out. Track your accomplishments. So track your accomplishments and your progress and the milestones that you've met, and look back at those and see how they feel. That might actually help you motivate because you can see how far you've come. And you can also do this backwards. You can think about, just like you might do with a resume, but you can do it in a more personal way about the accomplishments that you've had in your personal life, and then you know, thinking about all that you've achieved. Tell yourself out loud that you're proud of yourself, which might feel a little bit awkward, but do it anyway. It's important to say, you know, like, I did this thing and it was hard. Go me. You can say it to yourself. You can say it to somebody else, either way. And you can also plan to have something to look forward to. And when you're identifying what kind of support you need, you know, that might be like hugs, words of praise, encouragement, self-motivation ideas might be, you know, doing an action item before there's something else that you want to do. So for example, like, oh, I really want to watch this new TV show. But I've got to do this one action item towards my goal before I can do that. And then it just can kind of give you that little boost. I use those little things all the time. And then the one thing that we really don't do enough at all is the celebrating and reflecting. So we need to stop to celebrate our wins, accomplishments, and goal achievements. We have to do it. When we do take the time to do it, we train ourselves that it was worthwhile, that it was fun. It feels good to achieve something that we worked hard to do. So go ahead and brag on yourself. Ask for a high five or hug, or, you know, the social distance version of that. Take a break, do something fun. Take the time to celebrate and say, you know what, I did this and I want to feel good about it, whether that's for 5 minutes, a whole week, whatever you need to do. Check in, and then for reflecting, check in with yourself after you reach a goal or hit a significant milestone. So use those discoveries on your next goal setting path. So there's several questions you can ask to that end. So how did my objective change or evolve? Did my approach change? What would I do again? What would I get rid of? And what surprised me? So even if you're doing this mentally, you could write it down, or you can just think about it. Doing that's going to set yourself up for much more success and maybe quicker the next go round. If you have any other ideas for ways that you can reflect, please drop those in the chat, because I would love to hear them. And, you know, another thing on celebrating, one of the things that I love to do is, you know, getting on a Zoom call with your supporters, your accountability buddies, or, you know, my mom and my brother and I have a group text where for a while we were just like texting each other like something awesome that we were proud of ourselves for. And it was really great to just kind of have this echo of like, woohoo, you know, going back and forth, and that felt really nice. So this is your mission if you choose to accept it. I would love for you to identify one action you will take this week towards your goals, just one that you will do this week. So it's Tuesday, you've got several more days this week that you can do. If you can identify one thing, I'd love for you to drop it in the chat, and you can email me at goals@asiamarch.com, and I will follow up with you. I'll check in with you next week to see how that action went and how things are going. So I would love to hear what you're working on. I want to give us a little bit of time for questions and answers. So I'm going to figure this out. Let's see. If you've got any questions, I'm going to scroll back through the chat, but if anybody's got any questions, I think you can also take yourself off mute, possibly, if you want to answer it out loud, or ask it, I suppose. Good apps to track goals. I don't use any myself. I think that there is one called Habit app. There's probably some of you probably know better than me, because I just haven't used any. I think there's one called Habit app or something along those lines, which is a little bit habit tracker. Thank you. And you know, some of those are a little bit more about setting good habits daily, but those are things that you can put towards your, you know, continued goal seeking. What are some ways to check yourself if you are a perfectionist / procrastinator? Yeah. Who's feeling that one? so, so if you are, this is the perfectionist point, and even the procrastination point. The doing anything at all has been something that's really saved me, because it's taken away that pressure. Like, I've given myself permission to say, oh, I want to go to the gym like every day, and it's like, well, it's not realistic. Or what if I can't go today? Then what? Do I just do nothing? And it's like, well, can I do one push-up? I can do one push-up, so I think it's about letting go. One of my little phrases is like, what's the least I can do to feel good about today? I used to have like really bad cases of the Sunday blues. I think they're called something else. The Sundays, where you're just like, oh God, Monday, and I haven't gotten like the 5 million things I wanted to do on the weekend done. I wanted to relax and sleep in and watch a movie and cook all the things and run all the errands and hang out with friends and like work out twice. And I was like, you can't do all those things in one weekend. Like, it's not, some of those are like opposing priorities, right? So, so saying like, what's the least I can do to feel good about today really, really helps to just say, this is my one thing. And that I'm okay with that. So that would be my advice for the perfectionist and procrastination tendencies. Any advice on having too many goals at once and choosing between them? So, I'm also personally guilty of this as someone who is overachieving and wanting to do so many things. I think that you have to not prioritize, but maybe. So if you have a lot of things up in the air because you want to achieve so many things, that's wonderful. So like from the first standpoint, like, it's great to be in that place. It's totally fine. But you can't, it's hard to like move meaningfully towards all of those things at once. So it might be that you're okay with saying like, well, whenever I feel driven to work towards one of these things, that I'm okay with just going with that flow. So that's one way, which is a little bit more loosey-goosey, but maybe works for you. Another way would be to say, what do these goals have in common? So sometimes our goals overlap in ways that it's like, oh, well, actually, if I look at it, all these goals are about being healthier or about being, learning a certain thing or developing in a certain way. So if you can identify those crossover points, maybe you can say, okay, well, actually, my goal is this one big thing, your sort of overarching goal. And here are the other little things that kind of come down from it. And sometimes one leads into another, so you can kind of look at it that way. I don't know if that is like answering the question, but I feel like, okay, good. I don't know if it was too big. Okay. I feel like I start moving forward, then encounter societal punishment for like incidents of patriarchy, microaggressions, or other painful moments, and wind up spending so much time recovering that I run out of energy. I feel you. Yeah, I mean, it's rough out there, and it's rough out there on the regular. And I think that you have to find, and this is where I think sometimes making small little things is really useful. And also one of the things, it's okay, especially right now, I think it's okay to not be like hustling towards a goal. I know that feels counterintuitive to what we're here about today, but it's okay to just say like, you know what, I'm going to daydream about the things that I want to achieve, but I'm not in the place right now, not in the mental place or the energetic space. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you can't be kind of doing some like background work on it if you feel inspired to. But you can also just be setting these little targets. I mean, like with everything that's been going on, some days it's just like, I put on pants, that felt like, wow, go me. And some days that's fine. So I think, it's okay to just set these little tasks that can help you feel like, I just need to feel like a person today, or I need to feel a little bit more put, together with myself. And some days you're just like, today I just need to sit and watch TV, and that's okay too. Best recommendation to get out of your own way. Yes, I find I know exactly what to do, but I don't do it. Woo! Who knows that one? Yes, so that's definitely definitely a tricky one. in terms of just like, yeah, we know what to do and we don't do it. So this is where identifying your obstacles is really important and making a plan. So I know that's partially what your question is like, what do I do? Like, what should my plan be for like getting out of my own way? You know, I think that knowing that those things come up, I think is helpful. So knowing that you're like, at one point I will be like, I know what to do and I just won't do it. So knowing that that will come up is okay. Sometimes I give myself like a pass. So I might say, you know, it's okay today, but like if it's been 3 times in a row and I haven't done the thing, then either I say 3 times and now I have to do the thing, like I've given myself X number of passes, or I have to change my objective, because I find that if I like don't do the thing, then I probably don't really want to get where I want to go. And you might argue with me and say that that's not true, but I think if you drill into it a little bit, you might find that maybe that goal is not the thing you're really trying to get to. Let's see the slide about focus. Maintaining focus. Well, you didn't miss much on the maintaining focus slide because it's just got one thing. The maintaining focus is just about considering future you. And this is something I talk with my clients a lot about, and especially good with long-term goals like saving money or being healthy, or things that sometimes are kind of have ambiguous deadlines, or kind of just these ongoing things. So thinking of future you as opposed to you right now can be a helpful way to maintain focus. It's a very simple one, but I think it can be really powerful if you really identify with, if you can find a way to identify with that future you. So like it can happen in small ways, like if I eat this thing, like I would go to the bakery and look at all the cakes and stuff, but I don't do well with certain foods. So I would go there and be like, oh, yum, delicious, you know, so I would like think about it. But when I imagined eating it, I was like, well, I'm going to feel great for 5 minutes and then I'm going to feel horrible for a few hours. And I'd rather not feel horrible for a few hours for like 5 minutes of feeling like this is the most fun thing I've ever done. So sometimes like that might not be that might not always be the case. So that's like a sort of micro version of that. But I think in the bigger scheme of things, for like, again, for these long-term goals, thinking about, you know, what does, you know, me in 20 years look like? What does me in 5 years look like? And I don't, you know, I think someone put on in the questions, like, you know, they're not a 5-year planning type of person, and neither am I. But I can think about the kind of like big picture, like how do I want to feel? Who do I want, like, how do I want to be in the world? Like those things are not going to change a whole lot. So if I can think about how can I set her up for success? How can I set her up to be happy? How can I set her up to be feeling good about where she's at? That motivates me to do better for her. If that makes sense. Any other questions? Let's see. All right. So I'm just going to show you this last little slide. So many buttons. Okay, so thank you all so much for being here today. I really appreciate your energy and your time and your questions and your attention. Please, 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 I sincerely mean this. If you have any questions or thoughts or frustrations, I want to figure it out with you. And I would be thrilled to hear any feedback you had about today as well. This has been really fun for me. As a little bit, you know, frazzled, but I'm, it's all good. So, and for those of you who made it live, I'm going to be offering 4 complimentary goal-focused power sessions over the next couple of weeks to the first few people who sign up. So first 4 people who sign up. So actually, I'll drop that in the chat in a second, the link for that. I really, you know, this really means so much to me. I really love like people like achieving their dreams and like living their best life and like being who they want to be in the world. So just like, I really mean that. So, you know, I don't want to keep you guys any longer. Thank you so much for being here. Email me with any questions, goals@asiamarsh.com. And I hope you got something out of our presentation today and our time together. So that's all I got. Shine bright, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. And hope to talk to you soon. Let me find that link for you guys, for those of you still around. Meant to do this before. I also have everyone's, I'll have everyone's email, so you can look for an email from me with information as well. But if you have to go, but I'm trying to find this, and everything's being slow. Let's see. All right, so that in the chat is the link to sign up for the complimentary goals focused power session. So if you want to sign up, go ahead and do it. It's going to be limited availability, but hope to talk to some of you soon.